Hey, HTDA, and this is my guide on the Last Lords faction of Endless Legend 2. These are the guys that you want to play if you just want to buy your way to victory. The first hint about how this faction is going to play you will already notice on the first turn of the game, because you'll find a lot of dust around, but you're not going to see any food appearing on your map anywhere. It's a good thing that this faction gets a bonus to all its dust production, because you're going to need a lot of it. First of all, you're going to need it to actually buy your population. Your population just doesn't grow naturally. Remember, no food. You're actually going to have to straight up buy your population in your cities. Now, this is also something that is extremely easy to forget. So whatever you do, set some sort of reminder for yourself that every now and then you go back in your cities, you spend some of this money, because otherwise your cities are going to sit at a very low population and simply not do much. Something else that is completely different for this faction is that your units don't actually heal automatically. Normally you can just sit them for a little while in your own territory or even outside of that, and then we heal up. But with this faction you actually have to spend dust in order to repair them. Now the nice thing is, look at this unit for example, just spending that dust is going to completely heal your entire army. So it's a very efficient and effective way actually to get your health back. Keep in mind though, this only works within your own territory, so if you go too far out of that territory and you do a lot of combat, you're probably going to run into some trouble. Since this faction is pretty much the equivalent of the corporate overlords of this world, there's a lot of things you have to think about when it comes to rewards your population. So first of all, the normal population that you get as a last lord is going to give you a little bit of influence. Doesn't matter where you put them, they're still going to give you influence. However, these guys really do not want to be citizens. This is the thing that you normally use in order to get some more food going and some dust. But these guys want to be anywhere but there. Luckily, there's a way to make them even more efficient, because you can build this soul repository. Now you can build one of these on every single one of your territories. So just to be clear, not just once per city, you can build one of these in every single territory that you attach to your cities as well. So for example, you can see I built one over here. I don't have one in the same city in this territory yet, and voila, I can build another one. Now, other than giving you a little bit of approval and science, this can also provide you with a special type of population unit, which is a primordial Last Lord. These guys by themselves also function as a generic type of worker in your cities, but they can actually give you a buff to other Last Lord populations in the same category. So for example, over here you can see I just have the normal Last Lords in here. I get 22, 15 and 10 in terms of production. Now if I replace one of these guys with one of these overlords, now I have 22 still, but 19 and 12. So all of these guys in here, these four of these at least, get a little buff from their primordial overlord. Now again, this is just one and with a relatively small number of population, but this buff would also apply if I have several of these overlords in the same category. So you are really rewarded in focusing and stacking up as many of your units in the same type of category as you can, because that will get you that stacking buff. Now this buff can also be improved if you have enough of these primordial Last Lords, so you can kind of see where the snowball starts to kick in. But that's not even where the population fun stops. If you have minor factions within your territory, you can start building lord estates on top of their villages. Yes, you're actually going to transform their own villages into your own estate. Now, if you do that, other than getting a little bit of science bonus, which is actually pretty decent as well, you're going to be able to click this button. Now, clicking this button will effectively remove any population that is slowly starting to build up in that village and put those people in your own town, as you can see over here. Now every time you do that, there is a chance that you will get a rebellion, and if that happens, enemy units will spawn and you will need to recapture that village. As you can see, that just actually happened for me over here. So I would need to rebuild my estate, reabsorb this into my empire and so on, but at the same time I am actually getting free population in my city as a result of just pressing that button. Now you can see I can do that with this village as well, but I'm now out of space. There is a very easy solution for that. We can just work these people to death. Yes, we are, once again, the corporate overlords of this world. You have a button over here that says a sacrifice for the realm. This is going to slowly turn any foreign units that are in the citizens category, you know, the category where all your other people don't want to be in anyway. And for every 2 foreign units that are in there, you can transform those into one of your own units. So these 4 chickens over here are going to turn into 2 of my units if I start sacrificing them. So that is a very convenient thing to do, because of course your own units are clearly superior to the ones that you get for free from these towns. Now once these guys run out, I can once again press this button and I will get some more people added to my town. And you can see this is a very easy way to make your towns extremely large very, very quickly. In terms of technology, all the faction-specific technologies that you get are focused on either improving your soul repositories, your lord estates, and the dust production that your empire has. Now, since you don't have to worry about food at all, and you will get a decent amount of science from your lord estates and soul repositories, you can pretty much just focus all your buildings on both industry as well as influence and or dust. As you can see, you can get up to pretty ridiculous amounts of production that way, really turning this faction in by far the strongest economic powerhouse. Now, that also means that because you have so much income, you can spend that on just upgrading and just buying a lot of buildings in your cities. Of course, again, this is going to get more expensive as the game progresses, but so is your income going to be improving. So all of that kind of levels out. The nice thing is that if you have a new city, then you can just go in and say like, okay, I am going to buy a whole bunch of improvements. I'm just clicking random things now. But it makes it extremely easy to catch up the progression with one of your newer cities later in the game. Speaking of building up your cities, your counselors are going to help you with that as well. You can see some of my favorite picks over here. All your counselors are pretty much going to be focused on either science or industry or both. So that is going to be pretty awesome because these are things that you want to be doing anyway. Because of the economic powerhouse that this faction is, I do think that they are the most flexible in terms of their win condition. For example, because your faction-specific buildings produce influence, but every single one of your populations also produces influence, well, you're going to end up with a lot of that, and that means that going for a supremacy victory is fairly straightforward. Just get a lot of territories under your control. You don't need to do battle for that, just claim them, and you should be golden for that route. This faction is also really good at actually destroying fortresses, because once you claim a fortress, that area turns into your own territory, or at least that's one of the options that you can pick, and once you're in your own territory, you can just straight up and heal up your entire army instantly and go for the next fortress after that. So you can really knock those down quite quickly, one after the other, if that is what you want to do. However, where I really think this faction shines is going for a worship victory, and then specifically going for the diversity victory. This is going to require you to have 80 populations of a single type, which is normally pretty hard to do, but this faction does this by far in the easiest way. Because remember, you can just straight up buy your own units, and considering you have a lot of production, you can probably buy at least 1 or 2 units every single turn, and if that wasn't enough, remember, you can always just round up some enemy units and then start sacrificing them to turn them into even more of your units. You can do this in every single of your towns. Now, it's going to take these estates a little while to fill back up, but you are going to get several populations per turn once you really start focusing on that, and that is going to give you a diversity victory very, very quickly. All of that said, if you do want to go for a more military approach to the game, you can definitely do that as well. The stalwart infantry unit is actually pretty decent. It hits pretty hard, it has a lot of defense and a lot of health, so this is a pretty durable unit, and that is handy when you have a very decent ranged unit to protect as well. This is a juggernaut ranged unit, that's an interesting combination, and these guys hit pretty decently as well on the battlefield. Once you get a little bit further into the technology tree, you can also start building Dust Lords, which is a flying unit, and as you can see from its stats, these guys are nothing to scoff at either. So between all of these, you can build up your army pretty quickly and easily, because remember, you can just keep fighting all of those random and minor factions around your entire territory, thereby increasing the levels on your own heroes pretty quickly. That wasn't enough yet. If you follow the quest line, you're actually going to get awarded with a very high level unit as well. This is pretty far down the quest line, to be fair, but you know, getting a free level 25 hero is, I would say, pretty awesome as well. So just in case you had any doubts, I actually think this is one of the strongest factions in the game currently, and I can see these guys getting some adjustments later on, because honestly just having a default very strong economy will help you to do literally everything else in the game as well, which is kind of like how I like to play my games anyway. So I do think this is a very fun faction to play, because it just is a feel-good faction. When you get a lot of gold flowing in, or dust I should say, and you just start expanding your cities very quickly, or you get a lot of influence going, and you can actually expand, you don't have to wait around to get that high up enough too much. When you do a little bit of combat and you just instantly heal your army while doing that, I could keep going, but this faction is just super clear. Now, I do want to point out once more, this faction is not necessarily easy to play. You do have to keep in mind that you need to buy your own units. You might need to focus a little bit on that sacrificing here and then if you really want to make the most out of that. The rebellions will happen, so you need to make sure you have armies close by to deal with that. You actually need to build these estates to get those benefits out of that, and you also need to make sure that you manage your soul repositories and the resulting special units you get from that in a correct way in order to optimize all of that. But if you are an optimizer, like I am, and this faction is going to be right up your alley. So what are you waiting for? Go and become a billionaire in Endless Legend 2, and make sure that you like the video if you find it useful. If you are still here, you are awesome, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.